Hey guys, welcome to MEDIocre-Lectures, the place where you can find lectures that are neither good nor bad, but they are enough for you to get the general understanding. For further information, please consult your anatomy atlas or your anatomy textbook. This is just here to give you a quick overview of the basic anatomical structures of the interior of the heart and a little bit of physiology. First of all, I need to mention that the heart in general, in its position, is in the anterior mediastinum, according to clinical terminology. Let's make this a little smaller, the next one. And the heart has two surfaces. The anterior aspect of the heart, the anterior surface, is called the sternocostal surface. And the posterior aspect, or the posterior surface, is called the diaphragmatic surface. Also, we need to mention that the heart has two margins. One margin over here. It stretches along the border of the heart on the lateral side to the left. This is called the mago obtusus. Although in English terminology, usually it's called the obtuse margin. And we have a margin over here, more inferiorly, more to the left. This is the mago acutus, or again, in English terminology, acute margin. Also, the heart has an apex, which is down here. The apex of the heart directs ventrally and to the left. That means forward and to the left. While it also has a base around here. The base directs dorsally and to the right. So to the back and to the right. Next, we're gonna focus on the internal structures as well as some of the big vessels of the heart. And for that, first of all, I'm gonna put my pen a little smaller. And then I'm gonna follow the flow of the blood through your heart. First, blood comes through the inferior and superior vena cava. Here we have the inferior vena cava. Here we have the superior vena cava. Flows into the right atrium. This is the entire structure of the right atrium, basically here. And as I said, through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, the blood enters the right atrium here. It enters it through the corresponding orifices of superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, which we have here. This is the orifice of the superior vena cava, and this is the orifice of the inferior vena cava. Down here, this little blue structure is also orifice. I'm gonna name it here, but we're gonna talk about this later when we talk about the blood supply of the heart in a future tutorial. This is also an orifice called the orifice of the coronary sinus. Also, a big structure in the right atrium, which we're going to talk about today, and I give you a little bit of background, but we will also go in further detail in a future tutorial talking about fetal circulation is the fossa ovalis, this structure over here, which is a remnant of the foramen ovale in fetal circulation, which is a passage between right atrium and left atrium in fetal circulation. So, right now our blood has entered right atrium through superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, and now it needs to travel to the right ventricle. But before it can go to the right ventricle, it has to pass this structure here, this brown structure. This is the so-called tricuspid valve. Tri is Latin and means three, and cuspid basically means cusp, so we know the tricuspid valve consists of 3 cusps. They also have names. We'll go into them further in a more detailed video about the valves of the heart, but it is basically anterior, posterior, and septal cusp. As you can see, these are anchored to those pink structures. We have 3 of them here. Those pink structures are the so-called papillary muscles. They have corresponding names. We have the anterior papillary muscle, the posterior papillary muscle, and the septal papillary muscle. And they are connected to the apices of the tricuspid valve through those here yellowish structures, which are tendons. They are called the chordae tendinae. The function of them is basically during systole, the part of the heart action where the ventricles constrict, the pressure rises, and this pressure is needed to pump the blood into the pulmonary circulation or the systemic circulation. It's a lot of pressure that your heart has to produce there, and there would be the danger of those valves that are supposed to keep blood flow in one direction leaking by pushing back into the right and left atrium and allowing spillage of blood that is supposed to go into the either pulmonary circulation or systemic circulation to go back into the right atrium. And we all know this would not be good. So these chordae tendinae and the papillary muscles, they anchor the valves in place, the individual cusps of the valves, so that this does not happen, that we have a perfect seal during systole. Alright, let's continue. Now we are here in the right ventricle. Our blood has arrived here. The blood is still deoxygenated, so we need to get it oxygenated again, so that our body, our cells can use it. So the next structure our blood has to pass is another valve, also brown here. This is the so-called pulmonary valve. The pulmonary valve is different as it does not consist out of sail cusps, but out of 3 semilunar cusps. Once it passes this valve, it enters the pulmonary trunk. Before it subdivides into the left pulmonary artery. And the right pulmonary artery. Some of you might wonder, why is it called artery? As there is obviously deoxygenated blood in it. Some of you are gonna say, why are you talking about this? I'm in med school, I know about this. Or I'm a nurse in training, or whatever, I know this. But for the interested layman, usually they don't know that artery basically just means a vessel that has very thick walls, a high pressure vessel that goes away from the heart. Usually it's synonymously in lay terms that veins carry deoxygenated blood and arteries carry oxygenated blood. And as we all know, in the pulmonary circulation, it's different. So we have basically the pulmonary arteries that go away into the pulmonary circulation to get enriched, which carry deoxygenated blood, and then later when we come back, we have the pulmonary veins, which carry oxygenated blood back to the heart. And yeah, basically heart flows this direction, goes into smaller vessels until it finally reaches the capillaries of the pulmonary circulation, get oxygenated again, and then come back through these four structures, the so-called pulmonary veins. Here we have the right pulmonary veins, and here we have the left pulmonary veins. They also enter through those corresponding orifices over here. Usually they are not separate. They are usually merged together. So we have basically two orifices, basically. And therefore enter the left atrium. They are not really big structures or important structures for general understanding in the left atrium, so we can basically follow the flow of our blood immediately one stage further, which would be the left ventricle. Again, before it enters the left ventricle, it has to pass another valve, and this is the so-called bicuspid valve. Or some might refer to it as mitral valve. Bicuspid, same analogy as over here. We have 3 here, which means 3. And here we have B, which means 2. So we only have 2 valves. Therefore also only 2 corresponding papillary muscles. In case you're wondering which one is missing, it is the septal papillary muscle, because we don't have a septal cusp. We only have anterior and posterior cusp. And again, 2 chordae tendineae. So, in systole, again, ventricles constrict, and our blood, now enriched with oxygen, can go to the entire systemic circulation and give stuff to our arteries, to our cells. Give oxygen to our cells so they can produce ATP and whatever cells do. You know that better than me, probably. Okay, but before it can do that, again, we have to pass another valve, again consisting of 3 semilunar cusps, the so-called aortic valve. Next stage would be the so-called ascending aorta. And then the aortic arch. Until it finally continues further down into the thoracic aorta. Then abdominal aorta. And you know how it continues. Or if you don't know, I'll talk about that in another video. You can also see those 3 structures over here. Those are also trunks that originate from the aortic arch. We're going to talk about them later when we talk about different big vessels in the body. So this is basically everything to the heart so far. Well, I could mention that, of course, after all the oxygen is used up by your cells, organs, and tissues, the blood enters again through superior and inferior vena cava, and the circle repeats itself. Yeah, guys. I can mention we have interventricular septum. Interventricular septum, pardon. And I think this is basically it for our tutorial. Now only follows a small PSA. This is my first video here. Please tell me what you think about it. I wanna convey a little bit of basic anatomy in more relaxed terms, not very stressful. But please note that I am still a student myself, and I mainly also do that for myself to revise a little bit. If you find any mistakes, please feel free to tell me about them. If you don't like the format at all, just tell me. I might continue anyway. But if you have any suggestions or a topic you want to learn about, just tell me. Feel free. Stay in med school, stay fresh, stay sober, don't take drugs. Or at least don't take too much drugs. See you, bye bye.